Good evening. We're going to get started here right on time at 7. As you can see, we have an overflow crowd, great opportunity, and thank you for everyone for coming out. The meeting tonight is an opportunity for the public to address council with respect to the EDPA. My name is Andy Laidlaw. I'm the interim CAO for the District of Saanich, and welcome you on behalf of council tonight. Before we get started, we have a facilitator this evening. I'm going to ask our Mayor, Mayor Atwell, to make a few comments and introduce our facilitator.
Thank you, Andy. Very loud. Can everyone hear me at the back? Okay. Before we get started, I'd just like to introduce the council members that are here, just so we can get better familiarity. On my left is Councillor Murdoch. Stand up, please. Thank you. Councillor Plant. Councillor Haynes, Councillor Brownoff, Councillor Workland, Councillor German, and Councillor Bryce. And Councillor Sanders would have been here tonight, but she has to deal with a family emergency. So we're here tonight as a result of a request from you. This started back in February. I was at a meeting of the Environment and Natural Areas Committee, and the idea came forward to have a public meeting to discuss this issue, the issue of the EDPA bylaw. And I think it's pretty clear that we got to this point because we're no longer looking at the bylaw in detail, but we're looking at it like it's another four-letter word. And so the purpose of this meeting, through the facilitator, is to find a path forward with this bylaw so that it works for the public, and so that it works for the environment, it works for the future generations, to find a middle ground, to find the best way forward on this. We've had 2 open houses. The first one was the Saanich Commonwealth Pool. That was a number of months ago, where members of the public were able to come in and talk with staff and take a look at their properties and learn more about the bylaw as it stands today. And we had a second open house at the Cedarville Rec Center. But the original request was to have a town hall-like format like this, an open meeting, less restricted by the rules of council. We're not here tonight assembled as council to make any decisions tonight. We're here to listen to you and to formulate a way forward. And so with that, I'd like to hand it over to our facilitator, James. And let's begin.
Okay, well, thank you. Impressive, a blustery evening and a huge turnout. And it's unfortunate that we're at sort of, maximum capacity, and some people are out there, but we certainly appreciate the efforts of coming out, which I think underscores the importance of the issues. And as the Mayor said, this is an opportunity to present information. Some of you might be looking forward to a dialogue or an exchange, lively debate. This evening's not that time. It's an opportunity for you to express your views, your preferences, objectives with respect to the bylaw. And as you know, it was enacted in 2012, and it's probably time to have a closer look at it. And you'll probably recall that there are 3 main objectives associated with the bylaw, which are sort of protection, mitigation, and restoration. Now, there will be different views about the extent to which the bylaw is achieving those things. So rather than just make a decision on that, it's important to get feedback and input with respect to the residents and those of you who care deeply about this to learn more about your preferences. So tonight is about hearing from you. Please don't expect council to be responding. There could be occasional questions of clarification, but mainly this is an opportunity for you to share and present your point of view so that it can be taken into account and considered when decisions are to be made. Now, I'll take a few minutes, if you can bear with me, to describe sort of the format of this evening and the sort of mechanics of getting your views heard. Now, many of you have been waiting, saving up, in fact, to come and express your point of view. And as you walked in, those of you who intend to do that took a number, sort of a deli number, if you will. And that lets you know the order in which you will likely have an opportunity to speak. Now, some of you might be saying, well, I got, deli ticket 52. Am I really going to get a chance tonight? Hard to say, but it's looking likely that there could be a follow-up. So this isn't necessarily a one-off. If, in fact, by the end of this evening, and I'll give you the timing, there are more people who haven't yet had a chance to speak, there will be an opportunity to revisit this in a subsequent town hall meeting. And further information will be provided about when and advertisements will go out. But in terms of this evening, if I can go over some of the mechanics. First of all, we're trying to cap this off at 11 p.m. this evening. So there's a 4-hour chunk here. It's a long night potentially, but obviously there's a lot to say. We'll be likely taking a break around 9 o'clock for people who just need to sort of move about. Some of you might come and go. That's okay. Also, those of you who have a number doesn't mean you must speak. If you decide, gosh, it's already been said, I'm quite happy to listen further, that's okay too.
10 after 7, let's get on with it.
All right, let's get on with it. But in terms of you need to know the mechanics before we get on with it. Those of you who have speaking numbers, there are places here that are reserved for you to sit down and wait your turn. And we hope to have an orderly way in which one person goes at a time and the next person is waiting so that when the speaker departs, somebody's waiting to get up there. The next thing to know is there is a 5-minute limit. You'll see these buttons here, they're very colorful. As soon as that 5 minutes has elapsed, I will certainly be paying attention to that, and that red button will flash. I'll apologize in advance if I have to cut you off, but unfortunately that's what might need to happen. So you have 5 minutes for those of you who are speaking, and you only get one chance at this evening, so you can't come up for seconds, because there's a lot of people waiting for this. Other thing to note is, given the nature of the issue, as I understand it, there is divergent points of view. There's going to be even strongly held different points of view. And the hope is, the intent is, and the expectation is that people will respectfully communicate those views. Which means those of you who are in front of that mic, as you're delivering your information, hopefully be sensitive to how that's being expressed, as well as the audience. We don't need clapping and heckling and those sorts of things. It's really a listening opportunity. So I hope everybody feels safe and has the space to express their views and allow those views to be heard. Common courtesy, I hope that can prevail. If it doesn't, and unfortunately I have to be the sort of adjudicator of that, I might have to step in and gently remind you. Okay? Now I know people want to get on with it. There's a lot of you waiting. So we will have a break just before 9. If you still want to sign up to speak, you can do that at the front at reception. And towards the end of the evening, we'll talk a bit about next steps, which likely includes the next meeting. But as you know, it will likely be into the new year, once all of the input has been considered, for council to begin making decisions and deliberating based on staff's reports and input that has been provided here and through other mechanisms. So you've probably had enough of me already, so I think we should probably turn it over and begin to get the speakers ready and approaching the podium.
Why don't we just save everybody time and recall council and the mayor?
I think we should get to the purpose of tonight's meeting, and there's an example of what we're really not interested in this evening. What we want to hear is, what are your views about this? Those other points of view, there might be forums in which those can be expressed. But tonight, we're here for the EDPA and those of you who want to speak to it. So I would just encourage you to try to demonstrate those courtesies, as hard as that might be. Who's number 1? And then number 2 and 3, you should be poised to pick up from the previous speaker. So let's listen.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Anita Bull. I am a resident of Saanich, and I am president of Saanich Citizens for a Responsible EPA Society. As of today, we have more than 830 Saanich residents who have signed our petition wanting a better EDPA bylaw. This number is growing every day. The residents want an EDPA bylaw that works for the people and for the environment. This bylaw, which as you know was adopted in March 2012, is not accomplishing either. and it does nothing to encourage people to want to do good things with their property, such as maintain or protect sensitive ecosystems or to plant native plants, species. We want to work with Saanich and other stakeholders to improve the bylaw. I think we need to start this conversation with what we can all agree on. I believe that every one of us here this evening will agree we need to protect our areas of highest biodiversity within Saanich. If all of us here agree in principle with supporting prudent environmental stewardship of our properties, then we must have to wonder why we have arrived at this current adversarial position. It appears the municipality feels it has consulted with the citizens. The citizens are not clear that this has been done in a manner that considered all the consequences, intended or otherwise, to be aired and to be understood. By the number of citizens here tonight, it is clear that this is the case. The citizens want to provide feedback and help create a better EDPA bylaw that meets its objective of protecting highest biodiversity within Saanich while respecting their property rights. Many landowners in the EDPA are scared. They have seen that other landowners in the EDPA have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars when they've sold their properties. This is one of the unintended consequences of the current bylaw. I am sure that few here want to see this continue. How do we go forward so it's a win-win for everyone? We need to do this by working together. We need to start with education and encouragement. Let's find out where these special areas are by putting boots on the ground and getting the science to support the bylaw. It is much easier for residents to buy into doing something good for our environment if it makes sense. It will never make sense to people to lock down lawn and garden under trees or shoreline that is completely covered with invasive species and has no remaining natural ecosystem. Once we find out where these areas of highest biodiversity are, there needs to be education and encouragement to support these areas continuing on for generations to come. This is a benefit for all of us, and the cost of accomplishing this, it should be borne by all of us, not just the landowner that happens to have a special feature on their property. If we leave the cost or burden of protecting these special areas with the landowner, without encouragement, without support, we risk losing these special areas forever. How do we support these landowners? Perhaps a break on their property taxes, or for the most special areas, perhaps Saanich should consider purchasing them for parkland so that everybody can enjoy them. Let's get creative. Let's come up with something before it is too late. Earlier this year, Saanich Council adopted the David Suzuki Blue Dot program, the right to a healthy environment, and agreed that by December of this year, they would consider objectives, targets, and timelines and actions to ensure equitable distribution of environmental benefits and burdens within the municipality. The burdens need to be shared. We believe much more can be achieved by working cooperatively with landowners. Most landowners love their properties. When helped, they are and will be more keen to conserve the special features on their properties. There needs to be a vision, one that is clear and that all stakeholders agree to. It needs to be scientifically defensible, achievable, and fair. Groomed lawns and gardens will not return to sensitive ecosystems if left alone. When left alone, the invasive species will take over, and I'm going faster here. A new proposal by Saanich is the invasive species bylaw. Are we to believe that this bylaw targeting only the 2,400 EDPA properties in Saanich with restrictions will somehow reestablish the areas of highest biodiversity? This is unfair and unrealistic. We would like to know why this proposed bylaw was not mentioned at the 2 open houses as it was passed by the Environment Committee in May of this year. We have provided a report to Council that covers many of the issues and concerns we have regarding the bylaw. We hope you all read it carefully and thoughtfully. Both the structure and the administration of the present Saanich Environmental Development Permit bylaw are severely flawed, resulting in significant negative impacts that cannot be justified. There are a large number of people here tonight, some of them are...
5 minutes, sorry, Anita. I'm going to have to enforce this, and I know you're in the midst of your screen, but we really have to keep this going.
I was going to ask for cooperation from the people here tonight.
Speaker number 2 is ready and going, and you'll notice that the yellow light gives you the 1-minute warning, and clapping's already started. There's nothing I can do to corral that, but I would encourage it just to keep flowing. Please go ahead.
Boy, you need influence to get in here. What a charismatic group. I would like to start off by thanking Council for having this popular open house or town hall meeting. I'm going to speak against the EDPA in its present form, but I think any sensible or sensitive person would approve on preserving our native species, which are diminishing at an alarming rate. I have 3 questions which I'd like to be recorded, and to which I would like an answer down the road. First, why is there a 15 meter immediate barrier and control area with an extra 15 meters amounting to 100 feet of property that my property, in my case, or many people here's property, that they're going to lose control over, that they have had for years, and suddenly they discover they have lost control of that. Metchosin, Oak Bay, all the local municipalities are content with the 15 meters. This is going to have a serious impact on the value of properties, and we know that the Provincial Assessment Review Board have taken off the tax rolls EDPA property amounting to 25% of one property. So there is going to be diminished tax resources, and we have an 800 million sewage treatment plant for the area, 60 million in public transport, etc. This situation now appears to have the financial optics of the goose cup. Second question, the EDPA and invasive species bylaw mean that any properties in the EDPA will be liable to a $250 fine at least per day if they have invasive species present on their property. That's all 2,400 properties. You better start collecting for this awful day. However, Saanich excluded itself. Can you believe it? Honestly, the parks, which is our public property, financed by our tax money, are left out of it. Same as boulevards. For example, on the boulevard outside my house, less than 5 feet from the fence line is a mature hawthorn dropping berries onto my property. I can be fined not less than $250 a day for this. And there is a sense of hypocrisy in all this. People are offended, and I understand why. The other issue is that we have all these threats, fine and coercion, but no cooperation. How if Saanich even put a box out into which the landowners could put their invasive species instead of paying to have them taken to the dump at considerable costs themselves? Or for elderly people, why not arrange for volunteers to go and help in clearing up? There has been not one word in the EDPA of any cooperation or help. If this bylaw is so good, why does Saanich exclude itself? We need... For every one of us in this room tonight, the most precious environment we have is that of our community. Saanich was a lovely, pleasant, rather funky, suburban, rural place where people got on readily and cheerfully and enjoyed each other. And suddenly we have threats, fines, and coercion. This is not good for the environment that we wish to live in. So my third question is, will council, and this is with respect and courtesy that I make this request,
Quickly.
will they change their policy back to one of respect, listening, and cooperation? Thank you.
Next speaker, please, number 3. Anybody got a deli ticket number 3? Okay, here we go. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Anne Marie, and I'm speaking on behalf of a friend who can't be here. And let me know if I'm speaking too fast, because I have a habit of doing that. So, I had a series of emails, just a few, that I'm going to read from Janet Lubick. First one is November 3rd. It was to Mayor and Council. Dear Mayor and Council, I am not affected by the EDPA bylaw, but felt I needed correct information. Therefore, I chose to attend the open house at Cedar Hill Rec Center. I was able to speak with Adrian Pollard, who is the manager of Environmental Services. Prior to going, I had a list of questions that I felt were pertinent. Below are the questions, followed by Ms. Pollard's answers. Question, I'm just going to say answer. So first question, whose idea was it to bring this bylaw forward? Council or your department? Adrian, answer, she had. Did you use provincial aerial photos from the 1990s? Answer, yes. Did you put boots on the ground? Did you put boots on the ground? Answer, we used a boat to cover the waterfront. I restated my question. Did you put boots on the ground? No. Answer, no. Is it correct that letters were mailed out in unmarked envelopes addressed occupant with the address on them? Answer, that is correct. They were sent by Canada Post. This was my, Janet goes on to say, this last question is very telling. It implies Ms. Pollard wanted to implement this program under the radar. In conclusion, I feel very strongly that this very undemocratic bylaw must be rescinded in its current format. If the council chooses not to amend it, I feel the citizens of Saanich will be left paying for a very expensive lawsuit. I and many other residents feel that Saanich would lose. Regards, Janet Lubick. Later that same evening, Councillor Saunders replied, Ms. Lubick, thank you for your email. As the chair of the Environmental Advisory Committee at the time the EDPA was implemented, I can assure you that the implementation of the EDPA bylaw was not implemented under the radar. There was full discussion at the environmental, and here the sentence isn't finished. So the next morning, Janet emails everyone, Vicki Saunders, CC'd all council, mayor. Ms. Saunders, would you like to finish your last sentence? At the time the EDPA was implemented, you stated you were the chair of the Environmental Advisory Committee. Therefore, would you care to comment why you would permit Ms. Pollard to mail letters in unmarked envelopes addressed to occupant when it was entirely possible the occupant may not have been the owner of the stated property? That action did not properly inform the Saanich landowners. I've been in contact with Janet Lubick this morning, and she still has not received further communication from Vicki Saunders. So that was November 4th. November 5, Janet emailed me and said, Anne-Marie, I did ask her if she would like to complete her sentence. She has not replied. What can I say? The last email is November 5, and it's from the clerk secretary, and it says to Janet, good afternoon. Receipt is acknowledged of your recent correspondence to Mayor and Council. Please be assured that your correspondence has been brought to the attention of Mayor and Councillors and referred to appropriate municipal staff for information. If further information is required, please email back to this address or call the Legislative Division between the hours of 8:30 and 4:30, Monday to Friday, except statutory holidays. Well, for information, I looked it up, and in the business world, that stands for information only, or reply if you want. Given the gravity of this situation, the last 3 words of the first paragraph should be for this action, further action. Those are all the emails that I'm speaking on behalf of Janet Lubick. And I just wanted to say something that came to mind about tonight's meeting. We just observed Remembrance Day when we honored the sacrifice of thousands of men and women who fought and died to preserve our democracy. What would they think if they realized that today our democracy is being steadily undermined by laws like the EDPA? Unelected officials create laws which are then approved without question, by our elected representatives who are supposed to be looking after the best interests of the people. This cannot continue. I still have 35 seconds left.
You do, Anne Marie, so use them up if you want them.
Okay, I'm proud to be speaking on behalf of Janet Lubick. She's a brilliant person, and the fact that she entrusted me with these emails spells out that something's not going on properly in Sandwich Council. Something's wrong. So I think we should fix it, and we should address a revision of the EPA law. 15 seconds.
Oh, keep going. 10 seconds.
Anyway, I don't want everybody speaks up for it.
Thank you, Anne Marie.
Thanks.
Speaker number 4, I think you're ready. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kelly Dodman. I'm speaking on behalf of A20 Mackenzie. My background is in environmental design and classic architecture. I've been working in the industry here in Victoria for the last 10 years or so now. And I just wanted to really bring home the point that if we're going to be stewards of the environment, we're going to foster a real awareness and caring for our sensitive ecosystems in Saanich. It needs to be done with, not with a carrot, I don't think, but with encouragement. I mean, what I see here is people being pushed forward to take care of the environment in a way that it doesn't encourage the individual. It's very much done with a switch instead of an open hand. So I just wanted to speak on behalf of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Speaker number 5, okay, we're rolling.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Daniel Dorr. I'm speaking on behalf of a number of properties that I have in Saanich that are affected by the EDPA, as well as projects I've done that haven't been affected by the EDPA. I've always been a steward of the environment on any of my development projects, and I believe strongly that we should protect our environment. And I want that to be very clear. But I think that the way it is done now is completely unattainable. We're not going to get the results we want. And furthermore, it puts a ridiculous open goalpost that no one can clearly understand. It's not like a restrictive covenant. It's not like a right-of-way. It's not like an easement where it's clear you can do this or you cannot do this. It is so open and so up to the whims of someone in a staff position that we are given the means and told how to go about removing or being exempt from the EDPA. We go about those ways, and the rules change each time we speak. At one time, they're following provincial and federal guidelines as to what is environmentally sensitive ecosystem, and then they're not. We have a biologist come on site, they do a report, we submit it, it's disregarded. Those are boots on the ground. Those are people who have looked at those specific sites, and there's a number of people here this evening who have had those biologists. I'm one of them. I've had a couple of biologists on two individual properties, both saying the same thing. Not a sensitive ecosystem, still in the EDPA. And I don't even mind if it's in the EDPA, but we need to have a clear way of either exempting, removing, or working with it. And there is no clear way. There's no way to change that I can see the existing bylaw without completely starting over. I believe in having an EDPA, but I do believe it needs to be done properly and not in such a way where people who have and got a property in it have everything to say, and people who do have properties in it and who are mostly affected by it don't. If we have open houses and you're still not giving all the information out at these open houses, how is that clear? How is that right? If you have already got in the background an invasive species removal bylaw waiting to go to council, and that isn't being shown at an open house, where's the justice in that? I don't understand. You know, I've voted for pretty much everybody here on council many times, and I don't understand the logic in it. You know, and where's the fairness? If it's going to be something where the land can come back if it's left alone, or it can be restored, fine under development permits when you're doing a subdivision or a rezoning, which I'm involved in. But it has to be reasonable and it has to be able to be maintained If you just go and remove the invasive species and your neighbor doesn't, it's not going to be maintained. If Saanich is your neighbor, it's a big piece of property, and it's certainly not going to be able to be maintained at that level. So please rescind this bylaw and start over. It's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. My name is Karen Adam. I am a Saanich rural landowner who has lived on my 5 acres of land for 44 years. My land is not large, but it is my total wealth. Total wealth being relative. My total wealth is the same as my daughter's, who lives in a 1,200 square foot bungalow in East Vancouver. Our property was bought to live on, enjoy, raise our family, raise a few small animals, and as a future investment when eventually we might have the option to either develop it or sell it to provide for my husband's and my own old age. And possibly, if not that needed, then to leave as an inheritance to my children and my grandchildren. For the past 44 years, we have paid full taxes and only made small changes as met our personal and family needs. We have removed dead trees and kept our property as natural as was reasonable to do so. The possibility of development of our land has been ruled out. Fair enough, it was never promised to us. But if fully